Bring it on. Want some, get some. Can I get a hell yeah?
Yes, I am a pirate.
You have to go with the Pirates because, of course, they have cannons and everything.
It's a pirate's life for me.
Be proud of who you are and what you are. You're Pirates.
It is a first down. Pirates.
Because when you're at East Carolina, you go for it every time. Or you don't coach at East Carolina, you don't come to East Carolina, you don't play at East Carolina with a weak heart. Write it.
I think I've ever been in a building as loud as that was. It was deafening in there.
We will get them on. I can promise you that.
Painted purple all night long in Eastern North Carolina.
You're watching The Sports Objective, the podcast for Pirates.
Yeah. My heart is purple and gold. I'm a pirate down to my soul. And I don't back down, not at all. Find out when the cannons explode.
All right, welcome into our ECU 2025 Spring Football Special. I am Dave Richmond, along from, ladies and gentlemen, all the way from LaGrange. You guessed it, Kyle from LaGrange Barber. What's up, dude? How you doing?
What's going on, man? We're sitting here tonight going to recap spring football, talk about needs we need to address in the portal. Some needs are already being addressed. Talk about, what we learned from spring ball. And later on in the show, Brandon Simmons is going to join us, and we're going to talk about our new strength and conditioning coach, Mason Baggett.
Yes, sir.
Brandon played at East Carolina. Mason Baggett was here as assistant strength and conditioning coach under Coach Golden and then under Coach Connors. And when he was here the first time, Brandon Simmons was a running back here and was very close with Coach Baggett, and they've maintained a relationship since then. And we haven't, heard much publicly about our new strength coach, Mason Baggett. So later on in the show, we'll get some insight from Brandon Simmons on Coach Baggett. But right now, we're making his return to the Sports Objective podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the legendary, the one and only, from the Steve Logan era, or as we refer to it now as the Matt Semenza era, from the 90s Pirate football, it's ECU linebacker Matt Semenza. Welcome in, Matt.
Wow. What's up, fellas? Man, that is some introduction right there. I appreciate that.
How you been, man? We missed you on Matty Ice, and now we have one of our guys back. So, by the way, fellas, really quick, I want to let everybody know, breaking news. In the next couple weeks, I can promise you, we've been working hard behind the scenes, research and development. It's only taken over 7 years, fellas, but good things come to those that wait. Our website, thesportsobjective.com, we're getting a redesign. Finally, I can sleep better at night knowing that we're going to have that. And we'll have a Matt Semenza collection. If you know Matt, he dresses very well. So we have a Sports Objective. What would you call that, Matt? Like a dressy casual line. If you go to work and you really don't want to wear a suit and tie, you can put on the Semenza line.
That would be the business casual look, Dave.
Yeah.
And that sounds good. I'm excited about the website, man. That's that'll be good for the upcoming football season for sure. And you know what, fellas, I'm a little when I look at this team, I mean, there's still a lot of questions, but I'm really excited in particular about the offensive side of the ball. I think we have a chance to be really good and dynamic offensively, as we head into year 2 in this system under John David Baker. And, anytime you bring a quarterback back who is now experienced, has 1 year in the system, you can expect another step forward. So there's a lot to like with this team, especially on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, man. Let's talk about what we do know and what we're positive about first. You feel good about Caden Hauser. Hauser obviously, came in last year from Michigan State. Everybody thought he was going to win the starting job, and for whatever reason didn't. Then he kind of emerged during the second half against Army, and then performed really well the second half of the season. Taking us to the bowl game against NC State. So you feel good about quarterback. You feel good about receiver. You've got a couple of playmakers out there. Let's talk about the receiving room, Matt. We thought we may lose. Oh God, I'm horrible with names. That's my weak
Yannick,
point.
right?
Yannick, yes.
Yannick, yep.
Yeah, we thought we might lose Yannick to Carolina, particularly with his brother committing there. But thankfully, during the spring portal period, he decided to stay a Pirate. So you got him. You got Smith from NC State. Talk about the receiving room. We got to feel really good about that.
Man, I love that room. I think it's as good of a receiving room as we've had in many, many years. And you start with Yannick on the outside. I mean, you talk about a big physical receiver who just has great hands and can make plays. And you really saw him progress as the season went on last year and get more comfortable in the system. And I really like some of the things we did with him in the bowl game against NC State, where we started running some more wide receiver screens with him on the perimeter. There's just so many ways you can use him. And, like you mentioned, there was definitely some concern, just the way this portal is, in 2025, him leaving this offseason, but a really good job by the staff to be able to secure him for, hopefully years to come, but for at least one more year. And looking forward to watching him make plays. And then, you think about Anthony Smith. I mean, he's kind of like your burner on the outside who can, get over the top of the back end of the defense and beat you deep. So you really like those two guys. And then obviously, you look at the slot, right? And you have Jaquez Petaway from Oklahoma, who another speed guy on the inside who, very highly recruited out of high school. For whatever reason, things didn't really work out at Oklahoma, but very talented guy. So right there you have three. And then I'll tell you another guy that's a little bit off the radar is a guy, Jaron, and I hope I'm saying his name right, Jaron Waiters, who shares the same position with Petaway in the slot. And you have two guys there that are really dynamic, very quick, playmaker type guys. So you just look at those five guys we mentioned, and right away you're feeling really good about what you have.
Yeah, who was the we picked up a kid in the portal late from South Carolina that was the receiver. In the fall, the winter
Mangum,
portal,
I believe is his name, Mangum.
Yeah, so you got him. We had some young receivers that didn't play much last year that showed some ability, particularly in the bowl game. I think we got a lot of depth in receiving room, so you feel good about that. You feel pretty good about the running back room. Obviously, we're going to miss Rajay Harris. You're not going to replace Harris easily, particularly the way he played the second half of the year. Not only the bowl game against NC State, but the North Texas game, the Tulsa game. He was just a stud the second half of the season. But you got London Montgomery. You talk about what do you I feel good about the running back room. Not as good as I do the receiving room, but I feel pretty good about it.
I agree, man. I feel really good about that room too. It's obviously it's going to be tough to replace Raji. And not just like in terms of his playing ability, but his leadership, his character, great team guy. So it's going to be tough to replace him. But you look at that room and you do feel really good. I'll tell you, I just saw pictures of London Montgomery from this spring, and he looks significantly bigger. He looks more muscular. Last year he looked thin, and I think he was that type of guy where he was the sort of like your speed guy, your home run hitter, but he definitely needed to put on some weight. And I think he's done that. Like I said, he looks more put together. Obviously had a really good spring game. And then you look at Marlon Gunn. I mean, Marlon Gunn's been an interesting situation to me, guys. He came in his freshman year. You saw things that were like, and you were like, wow, like this guy, he's going to be dynamic. He's going to have a huge career here. And then I think what happened with him was the injuries kind of started to pile up, and he wasn't fresh for a while. But by all accounts, he's fresh. He's ready to go. He's feeling good, and he's a really strong runner in between the tackles. And I'm really excited about Marlon Gunn. That's two guys. And then obviously I'll kick it back to you, but we have the Houston transfer as well, who brings a big presence to the room.
Yeah, I forgot about him. Yeah, no, he's a talented kid who performed really well under Holgerson's system, which is more similar to what we run, not exactly the same, but similar, as a freshman. And then didn't really see the field much last year, but as a freshman, he put up really good numbers.
Yeah, he definitely did. Again, another highly recruited guy at a high school, who, again, a bigger back, who's, talented guy. And I think it's really just a matter of, like, we have really good depth, but I think it's a question of, like, who fits best into this scheme and, who makes the plays. I think you're going to see us use, all three of those guys. I think they're all going to have a pretty big role. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine within the running back room, trying to use a lot of guys, keeping everybody fresh. And
I really like the way Baker managed the running backs the second half of the year. Once he was able to kind of have full control of the offense, I thought he did a really nice job managing the running backs.
Yeah, and you guys were talking about when you were talking about, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank.
London Montgomery?
No, not London Montgomery. 21.
Marlon Gunn.
Oh my God, yeah, I love these. One of the things I've heard, by the way, guys, spring football wise, was that he looks really, really good. Everybody that I've talked to, I didn't have a lot of. I work for a living, obviously, so I can't go to all the practices and interviews and all that like I want to. But everybody that I've talked to that covers it very closely, as you guys know, it was raving about him. So I'm praying. The key is to stay healthy. And Matt, you hit it in the nail on the head. He was not healthy last year, not anywhere near 100%. And man, it showed. He looked so slow last year, and we know that he's way more capable than what it showed last year. But he was just nagged with injuries. I agree with you 100%, Matt.
Yeah, and I think he's the type of guy. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Kyle. Like, when you look at him, and I'm drawing a blank on the Houston running back commit. Bubba can help me out here in the comments. But those are two guys that can run in between the tackles with power when you need, when you're in 3rd and 1 or, 4th and 2 in a goal line type situation, and you need a physical presence inside. I think those guys can both be that.
Yeah, no doubt. And you also look at the tight end room. I feel good. We got 2 young, talented tight ends. You feel good about both those guys. I don't even pretend like I know people's names because I don't. It's just not my strong point. But 2 young, talented tight ends. Not much behind them. I know we are looking in the portal right now for a experienced tight end to have 3 that we feel good about because after those 2 are freshmen. So, Matt, what are your thoughts on the tight end room?
Really like those guys too. I mean, I think across the board, I really like what we have on offense. You look at DeCirio Riles now in his 3rd year coming up. He was originally recruited out of the state of Florida, and then Javante Connor, who came here from Ole Miss. John David Baker had a relationship there and brought him in, and those are 2 guys that very athletic. I see them as kind of like your detached tight ends where you almost play them in a slot and you get them matched up on a linebacker one-on-one, and they can really run and make plays. I think they're both going to have a huge role. Really like, I think I'm speculating here, but I think when I heard we're looking for another tight end,
we're looking for a blocking tight end.
Exactly. That's exactly right. I think we're looking for that guy that, like, again, short yardage goal line that can just be kind of a road grader up front and be used in the running game.
You look at the offensive line last year, maybe overachieved, particularly again the second half of the year. The O-line really, for no more talent than we perceived them to have and how bad they were the previous year. I thought the O-line played well last year. Got a lot of those guys back, but one concern is center. Our starting center went down during spring, and we had some problems with snaps with the backups. So that's another position I think we're looking for as a guy who can come in and play center for us some.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the line, Matt?
I think that's a huge need right now when you look at it. I mean, again, I'm a little out of shape with names here, but the kid who came in from Houston and was about to start center for us, He just seemed like a natural fit in that position. And I'll tell you, I was down on the field next to him at the bowl game in Annapolis, and he is a big body.
Is that who got injured?
That is exactly who got injured.
But we're expecting him back for the fall, correct? We just need somebody to back him up.
No, I think he's out for my understanding is he's going to be out for the entire year.
Oh wow, okay. I was mistaken on that. Then we are desperately in need of a center.
Yeah, I agree. I think we need a natural center, somebody who's experienced. Like right now, we're trying to move guys around, but I think a natural center has experience playing that position in college, I think has kind of become like maybe the biggest need we have. And once again, thanks Bubba. Bubba's chiming in with the names because Bubba has probably the best memory of anybody I know. But Carson Jones is his name. He was a transfer last year from Houston and went down with a knee injury. Unfortunate. Hate it for him because he was set up to have a big year.
Yeah, so and offensive linemen are always tough to come by, particularly in the portal. They're gonna take some cash. I don't know how much money we have left in the bank for NIL, but that is something we need to address. I don't know what's out there in the portal. That is something that we should probably research to see who is in the portal at center. Is there somebody, maybe a starting at center from an FCS program that we could get? But that is desperately something we need, and that's a damn shame about the kid from Houston then going down with the knee injury for the year. For some reason, I was under the impression he'd be back in the fall. I did not realize it was a season-ending injury. So that's a bummer.
It is. It's really unfortunate for him, and I agree. I mean, if we could find a guy from the FCS level that has a lot of experience, I mean, I think those guys there's going to be some of those guys out there. So, and we do have money by all accounts. So
yeah, they're going to go after a center. They're going to have to. And Matt, we seem to, and we'll get over to the defensive side of the ball, but we seem to, this round of portal, we've done well because we didn't really lose anybody significant with the exception of Garcia as backup quarterback. And so far, we already signed the cornerback from ODU who had starting experience down there, lots of playing time. So that gives us some depth at corner. We it's not officially announced, but over IGO has if you have a prescription to 24/7 Sports over on HTC, he has let us know that we have a punter. He was the backup punter at Duke. Prior to that, he was the starting punter at Furman. He has a career long punt at Furman of 70 yards, averaged over 40 yards a punt at Furman. And we also have a field goal kicker that was just announced tonight, coming in from New Hampshire. He was 18 of 22 last year, had made 8 from 40 plus, and was 100% on his point afters last year. So already was okay with our field goal kicking situation. Now, I mean, I don't, you never know how things are going to work out, but I can't, nothing against Andrew Conrad and who's the other kid? The kid in the bowl. Lord have mercy.
We're both a little rusty on our name.
Yeah, Conrad and the other kicker, the Perez.
Perez. Yep, exactly.
So I it's going to be a real kicking competition, but when you hear 18 of 22, 8 over 40, 100% on PATs, I can't imagine him not winning the job. Sounds like a weapon.
Yeah, that would be a huge pickup if we can get him.
From what Igo said, it sounds like we have him.
Well, that's
great. I mean, unless I'm misinterpreting what I read on 24/7 Sports, it hasn't been announced officially. The punter has. The punter announced his commitment this evening officially, but it sounds like it's a done deal, just not official yet with the kicker from New Hampshire.
Yeah, no, that would be huge. And I tell you, just kind of shifting back, like one other point I wanted to make about the offense is that you look at this, obviously, like John David Baker in year 2, and you think about last year where we were. I think it was the second half of the Army game. where Hauser, I think you saw in the second half of that game where he finally started to get like comfortable, and you could really see something late in that game, even though it was kind of garbage time. We were getting blown out, but you saw the offense start to click, and it was obviously a little up and down. But, I think that going into year 2, this offense, I'm pretty confident saying we weren't running up to 100% capacity of what this offense can do in year 1. So I think there's still a lot more we can do within this offense. And I think you're going to see Hauser in particular. He's going to be so much more comfortable, especially with his checkdowns, going to his second and third read in this offense. Obviously the timing with the receivers. And then we have running backs who I think can block in the backfield too. So I just think you're going to see a more polished product overall. And I'll tell you, I fully expect to be one of the top offenses in the country next year and putting up a ton of points every week. I think you're going to see that.
I think it's potential for it. I think Hauser has got to. One thing I will say about Hauser, at times he was streaky last year, so he's going to have to quit that. He's going to have to be consistent and not be streaky. Also, there was times last year where looking back, Harris really won some games for us, and we ain't going to have that to lean on this year. But I do think the potential's there to have an excellent offense. Defense, though, on the other hand, and I think now with some of the moves we're making in the portal, I think we could be pretty good on special teams. Defense, though, Matt, is where a little bit of the concern lies. We brought in, we lost pretty much every damn secondary player we had. We brought in a couple guys. We're looking for more depth there. We already picked up a piece from ODU. We have a couple of more defensive backs visiting this weekend. So talk about, that's your side of the ball. A lot of people are concerned about the D-line. I've heard the D-line has looked better than expected during spring camp. But just first, we'll start with the D-line. What are your thoughts on the D-line? And who are you high on the D-line? And do you think we need to try to get some interior linemen to bolster depth?
Yeah, I do. The way, for me personally, when I look at building a team, I think if you're strong on the defensive front, it carries over to the rest of your defense. And, you saw that, if you look at the Philadelphia Eagles this year, I'll just give an NFL analogy, but, they were winning games up front. They were able to stop the run. They were able to get pressure on the opposing quarterback without even blitzing a lot of times, just their front four just wreaking havoc. And I think everything starts up front, and the D-line is definitely a concern of mine. And I know a lot of people have been talking about the defensive line look good this spring and people are feeling good about it. But for me personally, I want to keep adding to that room. I'm not content with it. And that's not a knock at all on the guys we have. I think we have some guys there, some big bodies, and I think they'll be very solid against the run. But what I worry about with that group is, can they generate pressure on the quarterback? And I'm not willing to really go into the season with that much inexperience on the defensive front. So I think if we have money to spend, and if we can find some guys that are out there, I think we need to try to add at least one more. And, somebody that's proven, do you guys remember Dave and Kyle? You remember the kid was out there from Vanderbilt?
Yes.
Yes. And we felt really good about it. We brought him in on a visit. We were all excited about it. Somebody like him, and I don't even know if he's still out there because it was a few months ago, but somebody like him who has starting experience, doesn't have to be the next Warren Sapp, but somebody who's solid, dependable, and maybe, if you could find somebody that's played a little bit in a good conference.
Maybe somebody from Auburn.
What do you guys think of that?
I mean, maybe somebody from Auburn.
Yeah.
I think, you mentioned the kid from Vandy. That was a damn shame. I remember talking to Blake the weekend of the visit, and he felt really good about getting him, and unfortunately we didn't. I agree with you. I think now we're going to have to spend some money on center. So that's probably something we weren't expecting them to do. Also, backup quarterback's going to take some money because from what I understand, I don't think they feel comfortable with Jeter running this offense if Hauser goes down. So that both of those positions are going to take cash. So I don't know how much money is going to be left, but I do think bringing in at least one experienced interior defensive lineman would be a smart thing to do. I know we're gonna have 5 secondary players on the field at all times. I know they're really going after that to create more depth. We have 2 visiting this weekend. Like I said, we already signed 1 from ODU. So what are your thoughts before we get into the secondary safeties and corners? What are your thoughts on the your position, the linebacker room?
I think there's a lot of moving parts, and I think there's a lot of turnover from last year. We lost some guys, and you don't necessarily feel great about the linebacker room right now, but that's not to say that it can't be a really good room, because I think it can. You just have some younger guys there, and like I said, we lost a number of people, so I think it can be a solid room, but I think there's just a lot of question marks, and again, I know you can't add like there's only so many players around, there's only so much money to spend, but for me personally, like going into this spring football, the 2 positions I really felt like we needed to add the most were defensive line, which I still feel that way, and then linebacker. And I still feel that way about both of those positions. So, but I do think we have some bodies there. It's going to be really, really interesting to see what we do with Sam Danka. He was primarily used and, as an outside rusher last year, and this spring they've moved him to more of it sounds like a middle linebacker that'll be used kind of like in nickel situations. He brings that length, that big body. He was 6'5", but again, as talented as he is he the type of guy that, when it's 3rd and 1, is he going to be able to take on offensive linemen and stuff the run? And those are just the type of things that are yet to be determined. So a lot of question marks for me.
I agree with you 100%, Matt. Kyle and I have been talking about the offense being so good, and it may come down to where we have to score video game numbers to win games. But I agree with you 1,000%. I think it's a matter of there's talent. It just comes down to more depth, right, Matt? I mean, depth is what's missing for me for D-line and linebacker.
No doubt. Yeah. And,
Matt, what do you go ahead, Matt?
Yeah, no, I agree, Dave. Depth that's definitely a concern right now, and just depth and experience.
What do you make of, we've already signed 1 corner. We have a couple of defensive backs visiting this weekend. The fact that we're going after secondary players, and one of the reasons we're going to have 5 defensive back players on the field at all times because the scheme we're running. So it's about depth, but we seem to be making such a concerted effort to bolster the depth of the secondary, and you don't just because you're not hearing it don't mean it's not happening. But really, I'm not hearing anything about linebackers in terms of the portal.
Right, which kind of tells me that they feel pretty good about that room and what they have there. So maybe maybe that's a good sign that they're feeling much better about that room than they were at least going into spring ball. And I do think that, and I say this all the time, but I think players make their biggest leap after their first year in spring football. I think that's when. So heading into their second year during the spring, I think that's where you see players make their biggest leap. So I think the guys that we have on the roster, even though they were young and inexperienced last year, I think you're going to see those guys take a big step forward and obviously be much more comfortable in the scheme, which is very similar to the scheme that Blake Harrell was running here. And Aldrich, the new DC, kept a lot of the terminology, which was really smart. He actually had to teach himself the terminology that we have because he wanted to keep things as simple as possible for the players. So that's a very smart decision on his point. And but certainly, you're going to see those guys take a big step forward.
Yeah, no doubt. We've talked about the defense. We've alluded to the secondary. You had pretty much the whole damn secondary transfer out or either graduate. We addressed some of it in the portal back in the fall, or excuse me, back in the winter. But give me your thoughts on the secondary, what we brought in this winter, what we already had coming back, and then the kid from ODU that we've brought in.
Yeah, I like the corner from Western Carolina. I think he's a proven guy, and he has a proven track record. Not really too sure how he did this spring. I know he's probably acclimating to the system and and just getting comfortable, in Greenville. But he's a proven guy. Like, he's done it, and he's done it against P5 schools. So you feel good about him. You brought in Key Crowell, who was a Division II player. And, the thing about him is that he's a smaller, I think he's only about 170 pounds soaking wet. So I think he's definitely going to play this year, but he might be a year away. I think he's going to have to get bigger, add some weight, get comfortable in the system. So, like I said, he's going to play, but he might be a year away from being a starter, which then, you think about, like, all right, where do we go for this second corner? And, I think that's why, to your point about they went out and they got the corner from ODU, who brings a ton of experience, hundreds of snaps on the college level under his belt. He's got 11 pass breakups. He's got a few interceptions. He's comfortable with our coach, who we just brought over from ODU. So I really like that signing. I think they brought him here for a reason, and that's to play. And then on top of that, you have the kid from Maryland, I think his name is Akins.
Yep.
And I think he's going to be used a lot in nickel and dime packages when we need an extra DB on the field. And I've heard some really good things about him too. So, I think based on the fact that we're going out and looking for defensive back players in the defensive backfield in the portal, tells me that they're not entirely comfortable with where we are.
Well, we lost so much. We lost depth. Whether you like a guy like Nash or not, he was depth. Well, we lost. Oh God, I'm horrible with names. Wilson Lamp. We lost. We lost a lot of damn players in the secondary. And so we got two visiting this weekend that I know about. Names have not been given, but it sounds like they're pretty good, talented guys. We also have a tight end visiting this weekend. So I would expect we will sign more corners to build that depth back up. And, I don't know from a talent standpoint from last year that we lost anybody, with the exception of Rebel, to the league, that we lost anybody that really can't be replaced.
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously the corner that went to Virginia Tech will
he was pretty good.
Yeah, and I think, but to your point, I agree. I mean, I don't think we lost anybody that can't be replaced, and in some ways, playing without Rebel, he got hurt so early in the year.
Yeah,
kind of propelled you to, kind of like look to the future and play. You had to play other guys that maybe weren't ready to go at that point. But yeah, so him aside, I think, I just think you're going to have to do a lot of mixing and matching early in the year and try to find out like who's making plays and who's not. And sometimes, unfortunately, you can't learn that until the very first game. Unfortunately, you can't. Sometimes you just can't see it until game day. But Dave, I know you were going to chime in there.
Yeah, I just wanted to overall your. I know we've been breaking down room by room by room. Just wanted to get your thoughts. We'll talk to Brandon Simmons, by the way, for just joining us in the second half of the show. I really like Blake Harrell. I was concerned, as I said a few months ago, about how will this team translate. You see these coaches all the time, Matt, where they get the players fired up. They win some games. They win the bowl job. They win the bowl game, and then they win the job, and then things flounder. I'm not saying. Let me be very clear. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I've been really, really happy with Blake Harrell when it comes to the team. If you watch practice, what a little bit of practice I've seen, these guys are flying everywhere. They're listening to coach. They're enthusiastic like he's been the coach for 10 years. I want to get your thoughts on that being a former player.
Yeah, and like if you don't like playing for Blake Harrell, I think it's probably more of a you problem than a Blake Harrell problem. You know, like he's a lot he's so different than Mike Houston. Like Mike Houston, and this is the way I kind of see it, sort of an old school mentality,
right?
You know, wanted to be very hard nosed and, you know, sort of just the word old school mentality comes to mind. I think what Blake brings is kind of like a little bit more modern style of coaching where, you know, he's thinking a lot more about player relationships, you know, good communication with the players. I know he's talked about not practicing, you know, or scaling down practice times, in particular on Sundays during the season. So I think he brings a little bit more of a modernized approach, which can be great. You know, the only thing is, you know, you don't want to lose that toughness. So you have to maintain that too. But I think, you know, I really like what I see of Blake Harrell. I really do. I think he's a smart guy. I think he's doing a really good job. There's going to be some road bumps, you know, there's going to be some speed bumps, but I think overall, I think it was the right choice to hire him. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he does.
Well, I think in terms of player relationship, and I think the fact that we really didn't lose, you know, much of anybody in the portal this spring is a good indication that things have gone well in terms of team chemistry, locker room, et cetera, during the spring. If not, you would have saw mass exodus. So that's good. My concerns with Blake is more so personnel stuff on the staff where he hired a GM, and then the GM left right after he got hired. We hired a secondary coach, and you know he really was never even on the job for a week, and then left. And I like both replacements, particularly the secondary coach from ODU. You know, we hired a strength and conditioning coach, which was a disaster, and we have a new strength and conditioning coach, which Brandon Simmons will go in depth about here in a minute. You know, I don't know, what is our special teams coordinator situation, because he left, went to Maryland. Did we hire a special teams coordinator and I just missed it, or is it kind of a special teams coordinator by you know, is each assistant coach kind of taking a special teams group?
Yeah, like Bubba said, Andre Powell left for Maryland, and I have not. Maybe somebody else can tell me, but I have not heard a new special teams coordinator. If it has, I may have missed it, but I don't think so.
You know, I haven't heard, but Dave, we have not made an official announcement on Mason Baggett being strength and conditioning coach. But it's been done. So, you know, I'm curious to know. We've clearly addressed some special teams needs in the portal. So do we have a special teams coordinator, or, you know, some coaches in the past have just let, you know, you handle kicking, you handle, you know, I don't know. Matt, have you heard anything on that?
Not sure about if we have an actual coordinator. I don't think we do at the moment. I could be wrong about that. I think it's like what you said. I think you're going to see different assistant coaches have to assume responsibilities. You know, maybe, you know, one guy takes kickoff return. You know, that's the way we did it when I was at East Carolina. We had different coaches, you know, take on different responsibilities within the special teams, and that can work out really well. I was not overly impressed with Andre Powell's special teams. I'm gonna be very honest. So I think we can make a lot of improvements in that area, and you know, this might be a better situation. I just didn't think that, you know, I just wasn't overly impressed with what we were doing there. I'll say that. So, this could be a change for the better.
Yeah, that's something we need to just with Igo. I'll see if I can do that off the air and see if he has an answer for me. Or I got some other connections I'll hit up to find out if there's going to be a plan to bring in a special teams coordinator now post spring, or if we are going to do it by committee with different assistant coaches.
Isn't it crazy though, fellas? You think about there's so many moving parts now in college football. It's almost hard to keep up with it. I mean, forget about the players who come and go. It's hard to get attached to these players because it just seems like they come and go. But think about all the movement just this spring. I mean, you're talking about, our strength coach, he comes in for a few months, he gets fired. Our GM who, I'll be honest, I really didn't like the way, I think, was it Noah Jones or Noah Bubble, we'll say, but really didn't like the way he handled that situation. He comes here, he wasn't on the field coach, but he accepted the job as a GM. And then after a month, he says, guess what? I want to be an on the field coach again. Well, it doesn't work that way. That's not always the most professional thing to do. So, just so many moving parts. It's hard to even stay on top of all these names.
Wait, but I thought you had the apartment, Matt, in the transfer portal. I mean, that's where you get the big bucks.
Well, that's got nothing to do with the coaches, though. He's too busy keeping up with the players in the portal. He doesn't have time to keep up with all these coaches that are coming and going. But that's my concern anyway about Blake was some of the hires didn't work out. I'm really on paper like the special team. The strength and conditioning hire, which will in a minute we'll go to Brandon Simmons and he'll go talk about Mason Baggett in depth. But I really like that on paper with him being here under Golden and under Connors. I think it's a better fit than the doofus we hired initially. And I am a bit concerned about the. We beat Parrott Academy out on hiring that doofus. But anyway, I am curious to know the special teams coordinator situation.
There's some information coming in on that, guys.
Okay, here we go.
There's Johnny Robertson. What's up, Johnny?
Johnny.
And John White. What's up, John? Have mentioned Ryan Smith.
Ryan Smith is our new special teams coordinator. Who the hell is Ryan Smith?
So I'm saying it's so hard to keep up.
Do you have any more information? Guys, we got to get more in touch here. We shouldn't have our listeners having to tell us stuff. They're supposed to be listening to us for information. We got to get our shit together, Matt. So this Ryan Smith fellow.
Hey, Kyle, he was on the Waltons.
What?
You love the Waltons, so
I do love the Waltons, but I don't recognize the name. What actor? What character was the actor Ryan Smith playing?
He was Eddie. He was the town drunk. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I thought you were being serious, like he played Jim Bob or something. No. Okay, all right.
I was talking about with a coworker today with the Waltons. So
there was no town drunk named Eddie on the Waltons.
I know that.
So Ryan Smith. Okay. I'm on. You guys talk amongst yourselves. So I'm gonna see what I can find out about Ryan Smith.
He's a senior special teams analyst. Thank you, Bubba. Hello to Bubba Rosenbaum.
Senior special teams analyst. So I guess we are not going to have an on the field special teams coach. Okay, that's interesting. That's an interesting approach.
He was here before, but was at Minnesota the last 2 seasons. Thank you, JR.
All right. So why wouldn't we just make him an on-the-field coach? I mean, I don't.
I'm guessing that's what they're going to have to do with him. I'm going to have to look more into that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I mean, why the hell haven't they already done it?
Because you got a portal. You got everything to worry about.
Yeah, I mean,
he is an ECU graduate.
Okay, all right.
That's a good thing. Not that matters. I mean, if there's a great coach and a person that graduates and doesn't know anything about football.
I'm just curious to why he's still senior special teams analyst instead of special teams coordinator. I mean, I don't understand why you wouldn't have just made that transition. I mean, we're not over the limit on the field coaches or anything. So I don't.
Bubba said he was hired February 24th of this year.
Yeah, there you go. And
again, then why isn't he special teams coordinator?
I don't. That's a good question. I don't know.
A lot of moving parts. Let me ask you guys this: is like jumping back to the offense really quick. I mean, with Garcia leaving, that kind of came out of nowhere because it looked like he was going to be with the team for another year. I truly feel like we need to get another quarterback in the portal. You saw, is it John David Black is his name? He hit the portal. Again, I mean, what do you guys think the chances are of going out at this point? Who's going to want to come here? I mean, obviously Hauser is locked into that starting spot.
Yeah.
We were talking about this earlier today, Kyle, but it's going to be hard to find a guy that's willing to come in here, I think, as the backup. What do you guys think?
I think, your approach that you mentioned earlier was kind of interesting. That do you tell a guy, look, hey, Hauser's going to have one more year left after this. If he performs as expected, it's going to take – he is now listed as special teams coordinator. Thank you, Johnny. All right, good. So we have the mystery solved. See, we have made no formal announcements for what we're saying about this stuff. But anyway, Matt, what you mentioned earlier, the approach of telling a quarterback, maybe a backup quarterback at, Missouri or Tennessee or a big school, he's sitting there number 2, and the other guy's got several years of eligibility left, and they got plenty of money to pay him. You tell him, hey, look, Hauser, if he shows out this year, he's probably going to cost more money than what we're going to be able to pay to keep him. He's going to have 1 year of eligibility left. You come in, you learn the system, you're our backup, and you will be our starting quarterback next year. That may be the approach you have to take and then if it don't work out that way, if we're able to keep Hauser, then it is what it is. But I think that may be the approach you have to take is to tell a kid, hey, look, you're going to sit at you're going to be the backup this year at Georgia. That kid ain't going nowhere. They got all the money, in the world, but you can come here, you can learn the system, and you'll be our starter next year.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's the way you have to approach it, as if Hauser's not going to be here beyond this season. And I think in addition to that, you have to approach it as if John David Baker's not going to be here beyond next season.
Well, you can't. Yeah, I agree with you, but you can't. That's counterproductive when it comes to recruiting.
Well, I mean, from the standpoint of, you just have to prepare for the future in terms of
Blake needs to be looking out for a new OC. Yes.
Yeah. And or if this is truly the system which Blake wants, which it seems like it's a great fit at ECU, then somebody on the staff has to be being, trained to be kind of the heir apparent, or you have to be looking outside. You just in this world, you just always have to be thinking 5 steps ahead, the way coaches move around and the way players move around. So, but yeah, I think
just look at somebody else on Ole Miss's staff and just keep, drawing from that pool.
Right. Yeah. But I think you nailed it. If you could find a guy who's a backup and sort of groom him this year as to be the heir apparent within the offense, I think that's probably the type of guy you can get. Dave, what do you think about that?
I definitely agree. I think that what you guys are saying is spot on. I think, you can look at it in any sport. Not going to pick on any names or coaches, but I would just say that the days of stating the obvious, but the days of coming in, having guys for 3, 4, 5 years, whatever, the days of the Matt Simmonses of the world, the Jeff Carls, that sort of thing is over. That doesn't mean that I agree with it or like it, but I agree with you 100%. You basically have to look at it like every player pretty much is a free agent. So when you have that mentality, like you were saying, Matt and Kyle, it's like, for me, I'm having to learn the roster over and over again. The coaches have always come and gone, but it seems like the players now, you get attached to them. And I think, Matt, you said earlier, you just can't get attached to these kids anymore. it has really become a business where you just say, all right, I've got number 49 on defense. I wonder who that could be for 1 year. And even if they have 4 years of eligibility or 3 years, I think it's a huge, huge mistake to have your head in the sand and think that that kid is going to stay. And I think, guys, adding to what you were saying with John David Baker, I just really, not to get ahead of myself, I do think we have a winning season this year. I do think we go to a bowl game. I'm not saying we're winning 10 games or anything crazy, but I do think we will barely have a winning season, definitely potentially 6-6. We go to a bowl. And if you win the bowl game, again, you have 7 wins. So how many people are going to come after John David Baker if you have 2 straight years where you have a winning season? So, and the same thing, another thing, guys, is these not only players but coaches. And, you know, who's to say that if you have a magical year that Blake Harrell will still be here, you know? So you have to –
Well, those would be good problems. If John David Baker is, you know, a hot OC out there, and if Blake Harrell is suddenly a hot head coach out there, you know, we've had a good year if Baker is you know, being courted. We've had a tremendous year if Harrell's being courted. I think the probability is high we will have a good offense. I think the probability is high. You know, I think if the defense overachieves, I think, you know, we could win as many as 8 games. But I'm looking at a 6-6 team. The schedule's harder this year. You got BYU non-conference. You got NC State non-conference. A game at Coastal's not easy. In conference, you got Tulane. You got Memphis. You got Army, all on the schedule. We have a 3-game stretch where we play BYU, Army, and Tulane, all, you know, in a matter of like 16 days, something like that. And, you know, that's a rough stretch. So, you know, this season is not going to be easy at all. But we have the potential to be really dynamic on offense. If we keep working this portal, the defense could be fairly good. If the offense is dynamic, a fairly good defense will be fine.
Yep.
And then, like I say, I already like the moves we're making for special teams with punter and kicker. So I think we have the potential to be a pretty decent football team this year.
Yeah, Matt, I was going to add to that. You always hear about, you know, about special teams and about, you know, not necessarily winning games, but you certainly can lose a lot of games if your special teams is not there. And for me, I think it's kind of like free throws in basketball. You know, you've got the fundamentals are huge. Well,
Logan always said, David, you got to win 2. You defense and special teams, or offensive special teams. So if we can win offensive special teams, you know, every game this year, then I think we'll be in good shape. And like I said, I really love getting that punter. He was the starting punter at Furman, put up good numbers there, was the backup at Duke last year. And the kicker transferring in from New Hampshire, which isn't official yet, but sounds like it will be. I mean, we are going to have some real depth at kicker now, bringing that kid in. And, I mean, just the stats he put up last year, I mean, I can't imagine him not winning the job.
I can't either. I mean, I think it's much needed.
Yep.
It just seems like we've been rolling the dice at kicker for too long.
You're right.
When's the last time we had a guy 100% on extra points?
Yeah, it seems like a long time, and so I think that's a huge pickup. And you know, I'll tell you, and I'm kind of putting myself out there a little bit, but I think this is going to be a top 10 offense in the country. I firmly
believe. Wow, man, I hope you're right, brother.
I do. I think you're going to see. I think you're going to see explosive plays every week from this offense. I think we have the receivers to do it. I think, again, Hauser in year 2.
What about center? I mean, how key is it to get a center to make sure that happens then?
I mean, I think it would certainly be a huge help. But I think, you know, even if you have to sort of mix and match guys in there that we have on the roster, I just feel really good about the scheme, and I feel really good about quarterback and wide receiver and the running back room. So I think you're going to see a ton of points this year. I'm really
top 10 offense. I was thinking maybe top 25, 30. Top 30 offense.
Yeah,
yeah. But top 10. if we are a top 10 offense, and we will have, unless our defense is 130. If we are a top 10 offense, we will have a special season.
Well, and not only that, but when you said Matt, as soon as you said top 10 offense, I understand that the defense can be bad, right? But as soon as you said,
oh man, if you got a top 10 offense and your defense is like 75, you'll be fine.
Yeah, what I was going to say is that when I heard top 10 offense, that to me sounds like fighting for the AAC conference championship. Notice I didn't say win it, but in the hunt for it. And when's the last time we've really been in the hunt for a conference championship? So that would be. I think you guys are right. I think as long as the defense stays healthy, we'll be average at defense and way above average or above average at offense. And then with, like you said, Kyle, with special teams, I'm leaning 7-5, 6-6, but right now the way too early predictions for the season. But it'll be interesting to see how the season unfolds when it comes to injuries. But I really think the offense will be very good. You look at the defensive side of the ball, guys, and Matt, we were talking about there's talent at linebacker and a D line, but if you start adding some more pieces there and a few to the secondary, we might be better. Maybe it's a good thing that we're not hard on the defense, but being really honest about, as you would say, brutally honest about the defense.
Yeah, and as good as I feel about the offense, and when I say top 10, there's a lot of different categories of that, right? But when you look at total yards per game, I think that's really kind of what I'm referring to. I think you're going to see a ton of yardage every week out of this offense.
I want a top 10 scoring offense. Damn the yardage.
That would be nice. But defense, as good as I feel about the offense, I don't have the best feeling right now about the defense, and I just think because there's just so many unproven parts. So I think you're going to see a lot of high scoring games. It's going to look a little. I don't want to say it's going to look like Ruffin McNeil's first year, because our defense was really bad that year, as good as we were offensively. But I think you're going to see there's going to be some frustration in terms of your offense is really doing well, moving the ball, but can you stop people on defense? I think that's what's going to be the difference between, if this team wins 6 games or do they have the ability to compete for a conference championship, is can you stop people? So that's what remains to be seen.
You remember during the I'll never forget, I love Rick Smith so much, and he was on Pirate Radio. Remember during the Montgomery era, it might have been that last year, 2018, and he said, well, if you can't run the ball and you can't stop the run, you're probably going to lose the game. And so I remember that very well. And I really believe we're going to run the ball. And you know what? I hope I'm wrong and the defense is way better. And that means that, again, fellas, that we're fighting for a conference championship. And I mean, you look at it, there's question marks, but guess what? The good news about the transfer portal is every team in this country, no matter what conference they're in, they have question marks. So we'll see about.
Yeah, and we're already starting to address them. And Dave, we're going to get ready here in a second and go to Brandon.
Okay.
And but we're already addressing some of those needs. We've already got the corner from ODU. We got the punter, the kicker from New Hampshire. Looks like that's a done deal. That's not official yet, but it looks like it. And so we will continue. We got a tight end visiting, a couple of corners visiting this weekend, and that's what's known about. There may be more kids visiting than is not known about. So we're attacking this portal way more aggressively now than we did in the winter. That was a strategy that we chose to take by the GM that's no longer here. So we will see if it works out.
Yeah, Matt, would you have any interest? I know they already have a new GM, but would you have an interest in taking that job? It seems pretty cool to be able to come in and, like you have the knowledge. There's so many people. I wanted to tell you this while you're on the show. I've had so many people to stop me over the last year and say, man, that Semenza knows what the blank he's talking about. And and really love having him on the show. And they said, when I hear Simmons talk, I'm quiet and I want to know what he has to say about when it comes to the X's and O's, when it comes to the Jimmys and Joes.
Well, I appreciate that. That's a nice thing to say. I mean, I got to say, like, that GM job, that's an awesome job.
Yeah.
That's an awesome job. I mean, you're talking about, you get to evaluate personnel. You're looking at the finances. Can we afford people? Can we slot people in?
Right.
You're building a roster. There's so much that goes into that. And I'll tell you that's an awesome job. And you think about like 10 years ago, did you ever think you'd see a GM in college football?
No,
right?
I
mean, it's just crazy like how much it's changed, but it's a really great job. And, if you can find the right person in that position, I think it can be very helpful. And, you need somebody that can really look at the roster and say, with an honest perspective, and say, all right, this is where we're deficient, and we really need to add a player here or here. And then obviously it comes down to, do you have the money to do that? But you talk about a great job, and man, in a dream scenario, I mean, that's the type of job I think a lot of us would love to have, right?
Absolutely.
No doubt. Well, Matt, I'm looking forward to having you back on, and I hope you'll come back on more. And again, I want to let everybody know we have our website that we'll unveil in the next few weeks. So we're very excited about that. In fact, again, if you're just joining us, we have the Simmons line. It's business casual, and you can dress up at work, and we'll have that for you in the merch when you get a chance to shop. And you can, Simmons, are you working on the line right now?
What about the Kyle Barber line?
That'll be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be all black with some purple accents. Might get some EST 1932 stuff back up there.
Yeah.
Some established 1932 merch could be coming down the pike once we get the website up and running. But guys, don't go away. It sounds like we're closing out the show, but we're not, because we got Brandon Simmons coming up to talk about our brand new strength and conditioning coach, Mason Baggett.
All right, let's do that right now.
Good stuff.
All right, welcome into the show, man. Former running back. I would love for him to be with us coaching sometime for the Pirates, but he does a great job high school in the Triangle area course. I'm talking about, now we can say Coach Brandon Simmons. Man, how are you? Great to have you back on the Sports Objective.
I'm well, man. Thanks for having me. Anytime that you guys, make it possible for me to make a quick appearance or an appearance, I'm all about it. I mean, I personally think you guys do a very good job, and I truly support what you guys got going on. So I appreciate you guys for bringing me on.
Well,
Brandon, before we get into spring ball and Mason and talking about strength and conditioning coach Mason Baggett, give everybody an update on what you're doing with your high school coaching career.
Oh wow! So I teach and I coach in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm the offensive coordinator at Southeast Raleigh High School. This will make year 3 for me there. I've been coaching high school football going on 16 years now. I'm also a business education teacher. I'm also a track and field coach as well. So right now I'm burning the candles at both ends. So we have conference championships tomorrow and on Thursday, but we also begin our spring practices today. So I'm all over the place. Recruiting is starting to take off as well. So I'm pretty involved with the high school game right now.
Well, Brandon, I must say that back on Tuesday, this being Thursday, my Martin County High School team, they won their conference championship on Tuesday. So I think it's the girls have won 5 straight, and I think the guys have won 4 straight. I know the girls have definitely won 5 straight. I'll have to check about the boys, but got to give their young team. So got to give kudos. There's a lot of great talent. Maybe one of these days, Kyle, I'm trying to get him down to Martin County, so down east. But Kyle Barber's neck of the woods too.
Originally.
Yeah.
Brandon, first, want to get your quick thoughts. I don't know how much of spring football, you said you were able to watch the spring game. Very vanilla, so you really didn't show much, and you're not going to see much. In fact, spring games are going to go away. Spring ball, as we know it, sounds like it may be going away at the college level in the near future. But just your thoughts on what you've seen, what you've read about spring football, and where you think maybe we have some needs that need to be filled out of the portal. If you want to comment on that.
Yes. So I had a chance to go to the spring game. It's always great catching up with old teammates. That's the main reason I go. The second reason I go is to watch the game. I literally sit there and watch the game. But from what I saw, like you said, very basic, fundamentally sound. But that's a good thing. The defense, there's a lot of length and athleticism, especially in the secondary. Linebackers were fitting the runs for the most part pretty solidly. Defensive lineman was, feast or famine, right? Just trying to hold their gaps. Big offensive line, big athletic offensive line, very deep at the running back position as well. I mean, I saw at least 4 guys that can play anywhere. Like they were running inside off the edge, catching the ball. Receivers made a few explosive plays as well. The defensive backs got in on a few breakups and interceptions, etc. But overall, I was impressed. I understand that it's spring, but at the end of the day, it's still football. I was impressed with the energy, the passion, the enthusiasm, and I'm excited to follow that next step, to see what's next, beginning in summertime.
Coach, I was really impressed with. I'm a huge fan, just like so is Kyle, of Blake Harrell. And when you talk about that energy, you made me think about him, because it is just really exciting to see the players. What I've seen again, and I haven't even. Sorry, Kyle, we haven't had a chance to talk a lot off air about the football team this season. What I have noticed is there's not a drop off as far as the passion. What we were concerned about was not Blake Harrell. He's a great guy and a great football coach. What we were concerned about is we didn't want it to be a flash in the pan, meaning that you have a few wins, the bowl game win, and then it's over. What I have seen, and I want to get your take and then Kyle's, what I have seen so far is that this energy, the momentum that we had back last year, so far, so good. It seems like it's continuing all the way through the winter workouts and spring ball.
Yeah, and the enthusiasm and the passion, that's non-negotiable. I mean, that's ECU football in a nutshell, in my opinion. In order to be successful at East Carolina, you have to embrace that chip on your shoulder. But most importantly, you need the enthusiasm. But like you just mentioned, it could have easily, fell off, especially after taking out NC State in the bowl game, right? A lot of athletes could have got complacent, but I didn't see that at all. I saw a lot of enthusiasm. I saw a lot of excitement, a lot of people flying around having fun. And even after the game was over, like during the signing day, a lot of the guys had smiles on their faces. They were talking. They were very, very much in the mode. So I was very happy to see that. But I'm not surprised because, again, I've had a chance to hear Coach Harrell speak on several occasions. I also had an opportunity to meet a number of his coaches, and his coaches are very enthusiastic. And I'm not surprised at all, but that's very encouraging to see.
Yeah, no doubt. I would think that would be one thing. A Blake Harrell football team, and guys like John David Baker, we should be a enthusiastic, motivated bunch. I don't see that being an issue. But speaking of motivation and enthusiastic, if you here's my segue, y'all like it. If you're going to be a strength and conditioning coach, you better be able to motivate, and you better be able to be enthusiastic. And we hired a strength and conditioning coach back in December. Didn't work out. We won't get into that.
Yeah.
But we got a new one. Still have not seen a formal announcement from the university, but he's got a job and he's got an office. So he's here. Mason Baggett, and the reason, Brandon, I really wanted to have you on is Mason was here before. For anybody who doesn't realize, Coach Baggett was here before under Coach Golden when you played here under Skip Holtz. Then was retained by Jeff Connors. So obviously knows the culture. So when you were here, obviously Coach Baggett has progressed in his career. It's been quite a few years. You're talking about what 16, 17 years ago now. It's hard to believe, ain't it?
Yeah, hard to believe.
So we welcome him back. First your thoughts on him when you played here?
Man, I have nothing but great things to say about Mason, man. He came to our program at the tail end or the back nine of my career at ECU. But we clicked immediately. Mason, he's very easy to talk to. I mean, he's a former college athlete as well, so he understood the grind, the grounding and pounding of playing the college game. He did a good job. He was very enthusiastic. He was a great teacher. I mean, if I was struggling with the technique, let's say a clean or a squat or bench press, he would correct it immediately, but also give us the reason why behind it. He came across like a selfless, assisted strength and conditioning coach. The interaction between him and Coach Golden, seemed to be very good. He was definitely a bright spot on that staff under Mike Golden. Anytime that I mention him, I smile on the inside because, I have nothing but respect and truly appreciate what he brought to our program while he was here earlier.
I just wanted to get your thoughts, Coach, on as far as Big John. And, I thought he did a good job, but maybe there's, when you, I guess what
How
I'm trying
do they differ? Is that what you want to go with?
No, I was just going to say is when you have a new coach, meaning Blake Harrell now, he got the gig. Do you want to bring your own guy in, or is that the case, or is it maybe that we do need some new blood, so to speak?
Well, I mean, I think that it all boils down to having a conversation and figuring out what's next. I mean, for example, Mike Houston, he had his run and he did a good job of assembling the staff and getting the program back on track. I just think that a lot of it is just, having a conversation, figuring out what the next step is. I'm pretty sure that if he wanted to come back, because of the prior relationship, he probably could have came back if he genuinely wanted to. But at the same time, there's a lot of variables that happens behind closed doors. I mean, hey, maybe he's like, because I mean, he was Mike Houston's guy, and everywhere Mike went, he went, right? So when he had an opportunity to, I guess, do something else, or spend a little bit of time with family, or try something different, that could have very well been the case. Again, I don't know, but a lot of times when there's a transition in coaching, those types of conversations do happen, and sometimes it's better to part ways with no ill will.
How well did you know Big John?
I haven't had a chance to sit down and have a conversation with him. A lot. If I'm on the sideline, I will speak to him. He always greeted me, always smiled. I've heard good things from the players. They have nothing but good things to say about him. I've seen a few videos of him talking, and the guys fell in line. But I mean, he came across like a good strength and conditioning coach. And like I said, he was with Mike Houston at multiple places, and they've had a lot of success before. So he knows what success looked like, and
Yeah, my follow up was going to be, but since you didn't know Big John that well, it's really hard to ask how does he differ from Coach Baggett. But just more thoughts on Mason Baggett. Obviously, you I don't want to say played for him because that's not accurate, but he was coaching strength and condition as an assistant when you were here. Last we spoke with, so you're familiar with that aspect.
Yes.
How much have you kept up with him since then? Have you guys stayed in contact pretty regularly?
Yeah, so we follow each other. Social media, we follow each other from time to time. When I saw like a transition, from one program to the next, of course, I always liked it. The most current time the most current time that I had a conversation with him is when he was at Maryland, and because we follow each other on Twitter as well. But I sent him a DM. I said, "Hey man, what's going on?" And he replied, and was catching up a little bit. It completely blindsided me when he came here, I was like, oh, wow, I wasn't expecting it. I was very excited, but I wasn't expecting it. But from time to time throughout the past few years, I'll check in, to see, what he has going on, or, follow and like this post, etc. I didn't talk to him every single day. I mean, in this business, it's, college coaches are all over the place. High school coaches are, our hands are somewhere everywhere. But I have followed his track,
Yeah,
and I'm very impressed with it.
Was his strength and conditioning coach at Nevada.
Yeah.
Then was assistant strength and conditioning coach at Oregon. Went
Mm-hmm.
back to his alma mater. Was at Virginia Tech as associate strength and conditioning coach. And then had the opportunity to come here to be his strength and conditioning coach. Knows the culture, which I think is very important.
Agreed.
And I don't hiring and firing and all that. Who knows how it happened? But I know how Jeff Connors is, and Jeff's a very opinionated person. And I say that with all due respect to Coach Connors. For him to retain somebody probably speaks very well of Coach Baggett, the fact that he was retained by Coach Connors from Golden Staff.
Yes.
So what is he going to bring to the table? What does Coach Baggett bring to the table? What can the guys expect in terms of how he's going to work them?
So I asked him that same question. I saw him on the field. I lit up. I was like, "Hey, man, what's going on?" So I had a chance to catch up with him. First thing first, I congratulated him and all that good stuff. But after that, I started asking him. I was like, "Okay, man, what's next? Are you going to bring back the Blackbeard Challenge? Like a lot of the stuff that we did, right? Competing, in obstacle courses on the turf field. Are you going to bring that type of stuff back?" And he didn't want to roll out too much information, but he did tell me that he has a number of different competitive fun activities planned. He is going to lean on the culture, right? He does know the culture. He knows what type of kids ECU typically churn out. So he is going to lean on that. But he's also going to bring some sleek, new, innovative tricks that he picked up along the way. So that's all I can say about it at this moment. But I'm very excited about the direction of the strength and conditioning program at ECU under his leadership.
All right, so I'm curious. We're going to put you on the spot. What is the Blackbeard Challenge? You got to tell us, Coach.
Oh man, it was pretty fun. So the Blackbeard Challenge is a competition that we used to have at the end of summer session 2. So summer session 1, in case people don't know, summer session 1. Positional coaches are gone. The strength and conditioning team is on campus, and so are the players. That's summer session 1. Summer session 2, more players return, and it's more of the same. Now, at the very end of summer session 2, to get ready for fall ball, we used to have a competition on the turf field where, Coach Golden and his staff, and Mason was a part of this. They will set up obstacle courses on the turf field, on the grass field, etc. Some of the activities that we would do, like the farmer's walk. Well, for people who don't know what farmer's walk is, you basically have to grab like handles, heavy objects, and you have to walk. You have to walk like 50 yards, right? And it was very heavy weight, but you have to walk, all the way down. Another one was a heavy sled pull, right? I'm sorry. I'm going too fast. I'm getting so excited. So what the strength and conditioning staff would do is they would break the team up into mini teams. And when you're in that team, you decide, okay, hey, who does what, right? And you compete. But like I was saying, there were tire flip, tractor tire flip. That was the obstacle course. Heavy sled pull obstacle course. Farmer's walk. The ultimate activity at the very end was a super super challenging obstacle course where they had like 10 different things that you had to do, and at the very end, it's like you had to work your way through the obstacle course all the way like 100 yards, but at the very end, you have to sprint all the way around to the goal line, and whoever finished first, they got the most points for that event. But at the very end, we'll have fun. We'll take a picture and take a picture with the trophy. But it was always a fun time. So I was hoping that he'll bring that back. He didn't say that he would. He didn't say that he wouldn't bring it back. But he didn't commit that he would either. So, and I'm sure that there's something already like that in the program. but I just remember that particular event. We used to get so excited about it.
That's good. I mean, you obviously strength and conditioning is important, but you want to be able to have it fun at times while you're doing it.
Yes.
How much, you coached in the high school game, but obviously you followed the college game closely. You're at camps a lot. You're out there. How much would you say the strength and condition has changed at the college game since you played and since Coach Baggett was coaching you until 2025?
When I played, it was more Olympic lifting. Like it was the athletes were very muscular, very big. Not as much of a premium was placed on the speed piece, right? Well, between then and now, I just see a completely different approach. The powerlifting is important, but in today's game, the high school game, college game, even pro game, more emphasis is being placed on horizontal movement. How fast can you run? How fast you can hit, and how fast you can cover ground. And because of that, the scientific piece has changed, in my opinion, strength and conditioning from top to bottom. The best way to answer that question, I just think that back in the day, when it was coming through, more games were played in the phone booth. And to be honest with you, the game is shifting back to that. Like you're starting to see more teams that are running right at teams, right? Like heavier linemen. You're starting to see more tight ends, more running backs, heavier linebackers. All that stuff is starting to come back in. The game is shifting away from the spread era. Like it really is. If you look at college, right? College, they're the pioneers, right? You're starting to see a lot more tight ends, right, than ever that can not only run down the field to catch the ball, but also block. Well, a lot of that, in order to have tight ends that can do that type of stuff, strength and conditioning coaches have to put a premium on the power lifting to help in the run game, but also the twitchy movements that's necessary for those big guys to sprint down the field and look like 100-meter dash runners. So there's a lot of science in the game right now, a lot of science in strength and conditioning. A lot of strength and conditioning coaches are taking it very, very serious. They're very passionate about it. All you have to do is just go to X. You'll see how enthusiastic people are about strength and conditioning. It's a phenomenon, and it's pretty cool to see.
I got two more things, and I don't know if Dave has anything else.
Oh, you're good.
First, you factor in the portal. You got people, we just signed a kid today from Old Dominion, a cornerback, looks like a good pickup, played quite a bit up at ODU, and we need some depth at corner.
Yes.
But you're bringing in all these kids that are coming from different strength and conditioning programs. You don't have everybody embedded in your culture that has been here for 2, 3, 4 years. How in the world do you handle that as a strength and conditioning coach, especially?
Oh man, listen, you better have some Jedi mind tricks. I'll say that. But generally speaking, any kid that's transferring into a program, more often than not, I like to think that they're transferring for the right reasons. So, for example, if you want to make a splash, well, I mean, money too, right? But it can't. I mean, money is important, but let's call it for what it is. It's not everything. It really influences the decision. But at the end of the day, these kids want to play. I mean, that's just what it is. They want to play and they want to make money in the process. But strength and conditioning coaches, they have to be able to relate. They have to be able to win the kids over to get them to perform to the highest level. But most importantly, whenever kids are getting results in the weight room, they really listen more. They just listen more. So whenever they get results in the program, they're convinced in a hurry, even if they're a transfer kid.
Yeah, and I imagine you got to have good in-team leadership from the guys that are already here to make sure that buy-in happens.
Yeah.
My last question is just on Coach Baggett's personality. What's he like? If you're going to compare him, obviously you knew Coach Golden well. I'm sure being at East Carolina over the years, Coach Connors. If you could compare him to somebody we may know, or is he just, or is he not comparable? Is he just unique? Well, everybody's unique to themselves. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, the best way to describe him is he's very personable. He's very articulate. I mean, he can have, a nice conversation. about anything. He's really down to earth. He knows how to hit that switch. Like, he knows how to hit the switch. Downtime. And Mike Golden was good about that too. And Connor, I mean, all of them, I think they did a good job. It used to catch me off guard because it's like they're barking at you. You're like, oh, what did I do wrong? But they can also sit down and have a conversation with you. Mason, the best way to describe him, he's down to earth. You can talk to him about anything. He'll share his views. You can share yours. He'll respect it. But whenever it's time to buckle it up and get down to it, he's going to hit the switch and get stuff moving. Best way to describe him.
I have a couple
questions. How much do you think, and I said I had two more questions, a lot. How much do you think the fact that he was here when we won 2 conference championships, can he sell that to the players? Will they care? Will they be like that's when dinosaurs roamed the earth? It doesn't matter now? Or is it going to get them fired up?
Yeah, man, that stuff matters. I mean, at the end of the day, like, the players, no matter how much money they make, I mean, they want to win. Like, they want to win. They want to win championships. And, many people say, I mean, that was a great era. I mean, back-to-back championships. I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, we're no longer in that same conference, but it is what it is. I mean, that wasn't our fault. I mean, we played whoever that was on our schedule. I do think that his success on those teams, him knowing what championships look like, him being there in the moment, being around. I mean, saw the process. I mean, it's funny because he and I, one of the little stories he was talking about, like, so I saw him right there at the edge of the Murphy Center. We're just talking, but he was like, "Hey, man, you remember when we had you guys running up and down, like snaking those stairs?" Like, he started pointing. I said, "Oh yeah, I remember that, man." He said, "Yeah, that was crazy, man. Who do you have in your back?" I said, "I had Rob Cass." He started laughing. He was like, "Yeah." So basically, what they asked us to do was Rob, he was a big dude then. But what they were asking us to do, they asked us to find a teammate of similar size. Well, come on, Rob was much bigger than me, but you had to piggyback up the steps with that teammate, right? And that's what we had to do. Yeah, it was crazy. But he was just talking about that. He brought up that story. He brought up another story where it's cold in the morning, talking about 7 o'clock. We started at, on the ramps, and we had to snake all the way up. We had to cut across, right? And then snake all the way down on the ramps. We weren't allowed to take any other way. But, we'll just sit around talking about those types of stories and just reminiscing. But good old days.
No doubt. My question was, obviously last Thursday, we finally had the groundbreaking of the indoor practice facility.
Nice.
The Isley Performance Center. My question is, so Kyle and I, as you probably know, are pro NIL. So how much of a decision, you're in the high school ranks, you're a high school coach, offensive coordinator at Southeast Raleigh. How much of a decision does it mean? So, like, I'm a kid and I'm coming up and I'm like, you know what? East Carolina doesn't have an indoor practice facility, so I'm not coming. Does that make a decision? Is that still a factor, or is it more of NIL only?
I think, man, to be honest with you, I think that it's a combination of things. Like, for example, we got a number of kids in our program that's being recruited by some of the top programs in the country. ECU has offered 2 of our players that I know. They offer 2 of our players. They offer our lineman, and they offer our super back, our running back, which I was very excited about that, because at one point in time I was like, man, when is ECU going to come around this area? I understand, they want to lock down the East, but there's a lot of proud alums in the Triangle, and we do want to see you guys. So I was very happy when our head coach, Coach Campbell, he put a lot of the kids onto the bus, took them to ECU. They had a good time. But like I said, Coach Ware, that's who we know, the head of recruiting at ECU. He knows the high schools inside and out. We developed the relationship from his time at App State. He coached in the high school ranks. He coached at Salisbury High School, had a lot of success. He coached Van Estridge. And when I saw him this past Saturday, that was one of the first things he brought up. He was like, yeah, man, so you and Van were teammates. It's like, yeah, it was pretty good. But relationships, that's important. Like, the positional coaches or whoever's recruiting the kid, that's important. The relationship to the player, the relationship to the high school coach, NIL, that's a big deal, but it's not a deal breaker, but it's a big deal. The facilities, just having a place that you can call home. I do think that the indoor facility is going to help in the recruiting, because that's one extra tour, one extra trip you can take kids by, right? So, hey, you can say, hey, man, look at our nice track. Look at our baseball field. Look at our stadium. Oh, by the way, look at our turf field. And, hey, look at our indoor facility, right? People are like, whoa, wow, that's pretty nice. I do think that it's going to help with recruiting. I really do.
I had one more thing for you, Brandon. Change notes a little bit and gonna get a little serious here. This past weekend, before transferring to East Carolina, you were at Elizabeth City State. This past weekend, big tragedy up at Elizabeth City State with a mass shooting. Just your thoughts. I don't know. I mean, just whatever you want to say about that. You being somebody who attended school there.
Yeah, blessings. Blessings to the family. I still keep in contact with a number of friends who were on those teams when I was there. But I also have a former player up there right now. And I have a former player up there. He's on the football team. He and I we've been talking a lot before this situation happened. His sister is a track and field coach at our school. She's doing a very good job. But the first person I thought about was him. And I DM'd him just to check in. And he told me that he was, he saw everything happening. It was very unfortunate. He was hoping that they canceled classes, even though this week right here is the last week for them to take finals. So, the timing is not great, but, if he just finishes strong there, he'll be fine. But very, very unfortunate situation. That's a tradition. Like the tradition that they had this past weekend has been going on for a number of years. And like all schools, problems do happen from time to time when you have people together. That's just how it is. I don't care what school you go to, there's going to be a problem from time to time. But it's very unfortunate that someone lost their life, and it's very unfortunate that students got shot in the process. So it's a students. And the young man that lost his life, from what I'm reading, was a very good person, did a lot for the community, and tragically lost his life. So what I have to say, blessings to the family, blessings to the school, because during my time there, it was a great experience. I had my professors cared about me, my teammates, we got along well. I still keep in contact with my coaches from there, like Coach White. I still keep up with him. He's coaching at, I think, Pasquotank High School now. Marcus Hillard, he now coaches at Barton. He was recently the head coach there, so I've been keeping up with him over the years, a few teammates. So very unfortunate situation, but most importantly, blessings to the community.
Yeah, no doubt. And thoughts and prayers from everybody at the Sports Objective to everybody at Elizabeth City State. And just a brief commentary. And I'm not making this political. I got 5 guns over here. But there was a mass shooting at Elizabeth City State. There was a mass shooting in Myrtle Beach this past weekend.
Yep.
And, we live in Eastern North Carolina, right in between Myrtle Beach and Elizabeth City. And I hear nobody talking about it. We have become so desensitized to this.
Yeah.
It's scary and it's sad. And people need to be aware of their surroundings and actually realize this is a loss of life and people getting shot. I mean, it shouldn't be something that we're desensitized to.
Yes. And to add on to that, that's something that my former player talked about. He was upset that not enough people was talking about it, right? Like, that's what he said. He was just like, it's almost like the media is trying to cover it up, right? Like, that's how he felt. But I explained to him, I was like, well, it's not so much that, it's just there's so much other noise that's around us all the time. Like, social media is updating news around the clock all the time. At one point in time, it used to just be like a CNN, right? Now everybody's doing it, like breaking news all the time, politics all the time, sports all the time. There's just a lot of information right now. But like you said, for not enough people to be talking about it, because most people are desensitized to it. But I mean, gun violence is an issue, has been an issue. yeah, don't like it. So just, and I'll pass it back over. Being in the high school ring, we see a lot of faces all the time. A lot of our kids want to do things, right? They want to hang out with friends. They want to leave town. They just want to do what teenagers do, like us when we was that age. But as coaches and as teachers, we have to we have to remind them, hey, listen, have fun, but you got a lot of stuff to lose. Be smart. Don't stay out late, because nothing good, just calling for what it is, the teenagers, nothing good happens after 11 o'clock at night. It just doesn't. And we all been there before. And we're lucky enough to get out of a lot of those bad situations. But today it's just different, man. It's just different. It's just different.
Before we let you go, I thank you again for coming on the Sports Objective. You've been great we've been doing the show over 7 years now. And
yes.
You've always been good to us. So thank you for that. I'm going to put you on the spot. And
yes.
Kyle is Nostradamus when it comes to Pirate football. But you and I were talking in the green room before the show, and now we have you on the show. What are your thoughts on this year's team? It's way, 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 way too early. But we were talking ahead. I'm going to go ahead and say and go on a limb. We're going to be a bowl team. I don't have a number per se, but I would say we will be a bowl team. And just want to get your thoughts before we get out of here.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we were talking before we got up here, but just looking at the schedule and just knowing what I saw on Saturday, we could run the ball. The question is, can we consistently stop the ball? Well, I know for a fact, based off of the bowl game and just tracking the defense over years under Blake Harrell, the pressure packages are very exotic and very good. Like his staff, he knows how to dissect pass protections, and the way he teaches it is so simple. So I do think, like, our defense is built off of pressure and movement, right? So for them to just stay still, I mean, that's going to be a challenge because we don't really have heavy guys like that. But I do think we can run the ball. I think we can send pressure and get there when needed. I do think that we will, put up points or throw for big yards. And I think it will cover people up. So I definitely see a bowl game. I definitely see it just looking at the schedule. We open up against State. That's going to be a fun game. And then we play Campbell University, then Coastal Carolina. Those games are going to be fun. I love these regional matchups. And then we play BYU at ECU. That's going to be big time crowd. And then we have the Army. I mean, the American Conference is always brutal, but we have the Army, and then we have Tulane, and those teams have been successful. We have Tulsa, and then Temple, and then Charlotte. Charlotte started to turn into a rival game, so we hope. And then Memphis, UTSA, and then Florida Atlantic. So I definitely see a bowl team here. But the question is, are we able to retool and add a little bit more depth on the D line? Keep our backs healthy, keep our receivers healthy, keep our linebackers healthy. Depth is the number one question. And if we can stay healthy, I feel great about this schedule that we have.
Most definitely. Brandon, thank you so much. As always, good luck to what is the mascot again? I'm drawing a blank for Southeast Raleigh.
Oh, Bulldogs. Yeah, so
Bulldogs.
we're Bulldogs.
Man, I should have
yeah.
I was right.
We're Bulldogs.
Bulldogs.
Yeah,
so to the Bulldogs.
And appreciate it. Yeah, we have a track meet. So we have like I said, I'm in track and field mode as well. We have a 2-day track meet starting tomorrow. So we'll be in Cleveland tomorrow and on Thursday. And then next week we have a regional track meet, but we also have football workouts too, right? So I'm burning the candle at both ends there. And then after that, we'll have the state meet. And we do have a few regional qualifiers. Our relay teams or our boy and girl sprint relays are all qualified for regionals. So right now we're just trying to keep everybody healthy and see what's up, man. So we can run at North Carolina A&T for the state meet. So
That's great stuff, and I love how they have that every year at.
Oh yeah, I love it too.
Well, thank you so much. Good luck to the track team, and obviously to the football team this fall. We have you back on before then, obviously, but let's connect again very soon. And good luck to you. Thanks as always for making the time for us tonight.
Always, man. Appreciate you guys for having me on. Anytime that the invitation is there, I'm always going to make time to hop on and catch it with you guys for at least a little bit. Appreciate you guys' support, and I'll continue to support this podcast.
Thanks, Brandon.
Appreciate it. All right. Great to have our good friend Brandon Simmons. Thanks for him to be on, and we welcome back in live Kyle from the Grange Barber. Did you get a good nap?
Yeah, I did a couple things around the house, came back and listened to the very end of the interview, and been a good podcast talking to you, talking to Matt, and yesterday talking to Brandon. Hope everybody enjoyed it and got a lot of good information about the football team, and I learned some stuff myself, like that we do have a special teams coordinator.
It's like Matt said. I think the overall statement tonight is offense will be good. We'll see about defense. We'll see about special teams. But
I think special teams is going to be good based on the portal moves we've made with the punter and that kicker. That kicker's not official yet from New Hampshire, but it looks like it's headed that way.
That is awesome. And hey, it's still springtime, so everybody, sure, stay out of the panic room. Good luck to obviously baseball. Got a big win last night against Elon, and our good friend Justin Butts going to Wichita, so he'll be in Kansas at some point here pretty soon. So safe travels for him. Good luck to the baseball team, and we'll be back on Sunday night. Don't forget, as always, for extra innings. Kyle, thank you so much, my friend. You've been with me for over 1,000 episodes. Can you believe that? In over 7 years, and we're still good friends.
1,000 episodes. That's hard to believe, Dave. We should do a marathon, all 1,000 episodes in a row.
We can do it, brother. We can do it. All right. Hope you have a great night. Hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you back on again. We'll be live Sunday night around 8 o'clock right here on the Sports Objective. This has been the Spring Football Special, and I hope you enjoyed it. Tell your friends about us here on the Sports Objective. Good night, everybody, and as always, go Pirates.
You're watching the Sports Objective, the podcast for Pirates.